Major funding for these broadcasts has been provided by grants from the CUNY TV Foundation, Capital One Bank, Genova Burns, Gian Tomasi and Webster, New York Community Bank, the Witkoff Group, M&T Bank, Perfect Building Maintenance, Chase Commercial Term Lending, Greenberg Traurig, LLP, Kilroy Architectural Windows, New York's Window Company. Additional funding is provided by grants from AKA Hotels, Corman Communities, Aerial Property Advisors, Bank of America Merrill Lynch, Bank Leumi USA, Briarwood Organization, CBRE, Colliers International NYC, Cushman & Wakefield, Customers Bank, DDG, Dime Savings Bank of Williamsburg, Eastern Union Funding, Flushing Bank, Friedman LLP, Gemini Real Estate Advisors LLC, Herrick Feinstein LLP, Hersha Hospitality Trust, Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, James Orphanides Centurion Holdings, Margolin Weiner and Evans LLP, Madison Realty Capital, Massey Knackle Realty Services, Matone Group, Meridian Capital Group, Newmark Grubb Knight Frank, New Banks, People's United Bank, RBS Citizens Bank, SJP Properties, Sterling & Sterling, Stonehenge Partners, TD Bank, Terra CRG, The Continuum Company, LLC, and these friends.
You know, everyone wants to be in New York, but now everybody wants to be in two parts of New York. They want to be in Brooklyn, and they want to be in Lower Manhattan. Lower Manhattan is on fire. There's so much happening in the office market, the residential market, the retail market. You know, it's become a true 24/7 community. And today, my guests will tell you what's happening in Lower Manhattan. My guests include Joe McMillan, who is the chairman and the CEO of DDG. Mitch Rudin, who is the president and CEO for U.S. Commercial Operations at Brookfield Office Properties. Dara McQuillan, who is the director of marketing communications for World Trade Center Properties and Silverstein Properties. And last but not least, Winston Fisher, who's a partner of Fisher Brothers. So Mitch, you're down there. How much space does Brookfield own in Lower Manhattan?
We're the largest landlord, commercial landlord in Lower Manhattan, and we have about approximately 11 million square feet of office space with attendant retail.
Right. Now, what you have is, you know, you have Brookfield Place, which is the renamed property over there. How much is in Brookfield Place and how much is in downtown Lower Manhattan to speak of directly?
Well, there's 8 million square feet in Brookfield Place, divided amongst the 4 buildings, and then on our 8.5 with our new addition, and then we have One Liberty and New York Plaza.
And Dara, how much does Silverstein own in Lower Manhattan?
We have 7 World Trade Center, which is 1.7. We're building about 10 million square feet, and we've got another 1.5 million square feet of older office.
Now, you know, here's the interesting question, and I don't want to put you on the line. Fisher Brothers has been, until recently, and you got involved with this, Fisher Brothers, the majority of your business was in the office building. You never really had a desire to be in Lower Manhattan, right?
Over the years, I mean, I think we were talking about before, Lower Manhattan has gone under this transformation. So, you know, as time has gone on, we've recognized that there's a tremendous opportunity to be down there.
Do you think today, because what's happened, and I brought this up before when we were in the green room, this year there have been about 25 or 30 trades of office buildings, a number of them in my category of B office buildings, maybe B minus, maybe, I mean, you bought an A property over there, but today, Lower Manhattan, at one time it was the low-cost alternatives. That was the conceptual idea, to go to Lower Manhattan as a low-cost alternative. But if we look at the statistics for the fourth quarter, we had the best office leasing market in New York in the fourth quarter, and Lower Manhattan had the most leases and the majority of the leases. And you had some of them yourself. I mean, with NYMEX and the law firm, right?
Yeah. The demographics have changed so dramatically in just really the last few years. I think, as you indicated, in a prior generation or generations, it was the low-cost alternative. And if people could create a significant economic differential, then they would think about downtown. But now that we're finding what we're talking to, the larger tenants, and they're looking at where their populations live. They're living, the single most convenient place to be in the metropolitan area is downtown Manhattan. Why? Where do the younger people live? They live amongst Brooklyn, Lower Manhattan, and New Jersey. And the common point
Right.
for
And you
access
are
is-
acknowledging, even though many people, when I do New Jersey shows, do not acknowledge New York, you are acknowledging that a lot of people who live in Jersey City do come to Manhattan because of the path and the convenience.
It's not just Jersey City. I take a ferry from Middletown. It's a 45-minute ride, and I'm right there at Brookfield Place. It's a 5-minute walk to
A
work.
lot of my colleagues commute by ferry.
If we look at it this way, Brookfield is specifically Class A office buildings over there. Silverstein is Class A office buildings, some older buildings, but they're all Class A. And then you have the new Four Seasons being built over there. Winston we'll talk about in a second, but DDG is like a premier a boutique condominium operator downtown. How do you see the market in Lower Manhattan, Tribeca, and that market today?
We're big believers in the downtown Manhattan market. Our company was founded based in downtown Manhattan. Our office is in Tribeca. We started our first project.
You moved to Hudson's. You moved to a new location,
yes,
right? It's
yes,
a
we
little
moved-
further downtown.
Yes, we moved closer down to World Trade, farther south on Hudson Street, and we've done projects all over downtown Manhattan. We've done eight buildings. We started out on Bond Street. We've done in the Meatpacking District. We're currently doing our second project on Warren Street. We have 2 buildings in Soho. We have buildings elsewhere in Tribeca.
So who's buying? So who are what's the nature of the tenancy? The occupants over there. It's like when we talk about the office market, who's leasing, who's buying?
The nature of the buyers, it's very different depending on the project and the building. And Tribeca is different from Soho, different from NoHo. I would say that if you look at our buyers in Tribeca, predominantly families and mostly permanent residents. They love the schools, they like the transportation. In a lot of cases, it's close for them to get to work. They work downtown. If you look at Soho, approximately, say 50-50, some full-time residents, some pied-à-terre market. The out-of-town buyers love the shopping. They love the nightlife, the restaurants. NoHo, I'd say, is a mix. Meatpacking District is also a mix, but it depends on the building, and every building is slightly different.
Now, we bring up retail. Let's talk about what's doing in retail, because part of it, as they would call it, it's the innocuous over there, which is Westfield and Silverstein, and what you've done in Brookfield Place. That's about, what, 250,000 square feet of retail? Talk to me about the type of tenancy that's moving in.
My colleagues, and this took place before I arrived, had a vision that this could be the next great retail location in New York.
But it was
a
a retail location. I mean, when
not
Barney's,
quite a great retail
no,
location, but it was a retail.
It was a retail location. You did have Barney's. You did have some tenancies over there.
And it was it was designed really to serve the office tenancy that was there. Here's the opportunity, as the neighborhood has changed, taken together what's happening across the street at the Trade Center, to create again, here you're dealing with 90 million square feet of office tenancy plus a significant amount of residential. And between the two of us, we're on well under 1 million square feet of retail. So what we had a vision is that, taken together with the water, and we have the finest marina in Manhattan, sits right outside in our backyard. You take what's there, that we felt that there was, and it's now time proven to be so, that you could create the next great luxury and contemporary retail shopping district in the city. And with Hermes and Burberry and Ferragamo and
It
Scoop
sounds to me a
and
little bit like
Calypso.
Madison Avenue and Fifth, of that section because of the type of stores you're putting in.
Well, those are deliberately the ones that we went after and were successful in securing. And then you add to it the other amenities that go with it, principally food. We'll be opening our dining terrace at the end of March. There are 14 operators. We've signed leases with 12. Our marketplace will be opening in November. Between the two, we'll provide seating for 1,000 spot diners, which is an enormous amenity for office tenants. A 40,000 square foot Equinox will be opening toward the end of the year. Child care center, signed a restaurant lease with Parm. We've signed another restaurateur, which will be announced in a year. So you've created this great complex, and it's not just for the office tenancy, it's for the people in the neighborhood.
Right.
And as we were talking before, that neighborhood of downtown, which is blended into Tribeca. So where everyone downtown went to Tribeca, now it comes the other way.
Which is perfect because that's what you're trying to capture on both your rental building and on your condominium.
I can say thank you. It's exactly what we're trying to capture, and it's exactly what we see down there. That, I mean, Lower Manhattan, if you look at what's happened over the last 20 years, it's a radically different place. And today there are high-end services that are going in down there. There's high-end retail. She said it was retail down there, but it wasn't great retail. Now it's great retail. It's livable. Families want to be there.
Since I'm older, I'm closer to Mitch's age. One would say, I mean, the lead tenant in the Old World Trade Center was Alexander's department store. So if you want to talk about, changing of
But it had
retail component.
Greenwich Street is now open, right? You have the Four Seasons going in down there. You have some beautiful, 56 Leonard, which is obviously, is going in down there. I mean, there's validation that has taken place with Lower Manhattan and Tribeca. I mean, you look at the West Village, I mean, enough said, right? I mean, that is as hot as it can possibly be today. And the truth is, there's a vibe. I mean, I love the Upper East Side. I live on the Upper East Side. But downtown has something magical.
Here's the question, what do you see in the difference, and this is for everyone, but I'm going to ask you specifically, what's the difference in apartment rent going to be in your property over there as compared to other parts of the city? Are we talking $70 a square foot, the market rate, $80 a square foot?
Oh, I think that it's $70 is the bottom. I think that you're looking at Lower Manhattan, Tribeca, I think we'll see $80 to $100 a square foot. I think you're talking the Upper East Side, we'll see 70.
We've gotten 100 to 135 in the meatpacking district.
Meatpacking is a whole different, yeah. I mean, I think you're talking about, I just think if you're comparing Upper East Side, it's going to be your 65 to 75. Tribeca, meatpacking, Soho, NoHo. I mean, the outliers will be 135, but average, wouldn't be surprised if it's $90 a square foot.
Now, with the Four Seasons, where you're building a hotel and you're building a residence also, now those are going to be luxury condominiums?
We're building over 150 luxury condominiums.
And what's the projection on size and projected selling prices?
We're modeling our building after 15 Central Park West. It's got the same architect, and we're expecting to do just as successfully.
Now, here's the big question that certain people, the hospitality market, which you're entering in over there, and you're also entering because you did the extended stay hotel that you're opening up on 51st Street and First Avenue. The hospitality market is doing well in Lower Manhattan, and there's a lot of proliferation of new hotels opening there, but most of them are really, let's call them a 3.5 star. You don't have too many, 4-star, or what you are really a 5.5 to a 6-star. How do you see that for occupancy today? I mean, generally, do you believe that a lot of people who would normally go to Midtown to a hotel will be going more to downtown?
Well, we've partnered with Fisher Brothers on a phenomenal project near the United Nations, which is, extended stay, but it's super high-end. And downtown, there's never really been a 5-star hotel. But there's a lot of new hotels being built on the road doing very, very well. So we expect that the Four Seasons is going to do just as well as a Four Seasons would do in Midtown.
I think it's logical that as the office market expands and comes back downtown, the residential market, the luxury hotel market will follow.
There's 10. I mean, there's 10 million square feet of Class A space that's going to be opening up, and it's going to rent over the next 5 years. That should easily support a Four Seasons plus everything else that's going on down there.
Now, what has happened in the office market just in general, we were saying, is that, you know, there's, it's being more efficient, okay? You know, at one time there were law firms that had libraries. There are no more libraries, you know. A partner's office had X amount of square feet. It's much smaller today. How has that efficiency had an effect on leasing? On the do you see tenants taking smaller spaces than they had before?
Some are taking smaller, or some are perhaps not taking more than they otherwise would have. I think, you know, you talk about a law firm. You know, we recently signed a lease with Jones Day. What was appealing to them is that we had a floor plate that worked terrifically. We had economics that were excellent, and they really had they understood the vision of what this neighborhood was going to mean for their lawyers and their support staff. So that's what drove, you know, sort of drove their decision.
Now, you know, in one world you have Condé Nast moving in. What effect has the Condé Nast and the others had with regard to the advertising, to the new media, to the tech business in, you know, in the office market in Lower Manhattan today?
One of the first tenants we signed at 7 World Trade Center was Fast Company and Inc. magazines. And the CEO of the company came in, saw the column-free space, floor-to-ceiling glass, and said, you know what, I'm going to hire an architect who's going to design me space that will change how I do business. Completely open plan, just like you'd expect a newsroom to be. Nobody has a printer. You want to print, you go to the printing room. You want to eat, you go to the kitchen. He wanted to foster collaboration, and he wanted to fit as many people on the floor as possible, but because everyone had access to natural light, it felt great. And that was the beginning. And then Condé Nast, and now Omnicom, BMI, the music publishing. Clearly you're seeing a lot more creative firms. And these are people who are living in New York and working for these firms because they want to be working with people just like them. They're smart, they're young, they're creative. As you said, Mitch, they live in Jersey or they live downtown, Battery Park City, Tribeca, Lower East Side. It's a lot easier to get to Lower Manhattan. And that's what these companies are looking at when they're looking at office space.
Now, in your components that you're building over there, are you going to have any retail?
No, I mean, to speak of when sitting with this crowd, no, we're not. I mean,
No,
there's going to be some retail at the base of,
Right, but very small.
but very small. But I mean, there's a lot of retail obviously going in downtown, and we think that's very positive.
Now, what about you know, something that many people have done? What's your especially since I brought up the fact of the extended stay that the two of you are doing together on the Upper East Side. AKA today, the Cormans are building. They took over a building. They're going to be doing an extended stay downtown. With all of the things, how many more hotels do you think you're going to see downtown? I know both of you are very active in the Lower Manhattan community. Any idea, Dara?
I think you're going to see as many hotels as there's demand for, and so far there's a lot of demand. I mean, what's happening now is not only the office space and the companies moving downtown, but you're getting more and more visitors. The Memorial Park alone has received 10 million visitors when it opened. People are going to Brookfield Place not to work or to eat, but because there's great things happening on the waterfront, and you guys have such an incredible event program.
In the whole Hudson River, too. If you look at what's happened up and down the whole, we were talking about the west side.
Right.
Look at what's happened along the Hudson River, you know, the ability to go out there during the day or in the evenings or to run or to do activities. It's been phenomenal for the downtown market.
Now, what's your thoughts about the Howard Hughes redevelopment of the seaport? I mean, the old seaport was, it could have deserved to be fired and underwater and everything else. But the vision today with the seaport, what do you see happening over there?
It's becoming a destination just like other parts of downtown.
No, I mean, they're rebuilding the entire.
It's positive. I mean, again, it just speaks to you know what's happening with Lower Manhattan. All positive news. I mean, it's hard. I mean, it's hard to point to things today that don't show tremendous momentum, right? And so, what does that do? It just further enhances Lower Manhattan's appeal, whether for office, whether for residential, retail. I mean, it's the critical mass that's developing, and it's being done in such a first-class manner. The long run, you have to feel positive about it. At least this room seems to.
No, I'm very positive about it. Here's something interesting, and it's. I'm not suggesting being your leasing consultant over here for Brookfield Place, but one of the things that Billy McLeod is doing with his private equity partners is they bought 156 William Street, which was basically I put it as a C building if it was even that good, and they're basically making the building a medical office space, which is perfect because they're a block and a half from the downtown hospital. With all of the people moving into downtown, with all the people working there, there is a lack of healthcare facilities in the community. I mean, the hospital is only about 180 beds, and it's not really there. And St. Vincent's is no longer there, which was feeding that. Has Brookfield or has Silverstein thought about the idea of doing, maybe because of the urgent care centers or anything like that? Have people come to you in that regard?
We haven't had them approach it. Where our complexes, our other office buildings are really viewed as much more traditional office buildings. Not that it would,
No,
not that it's not possible if you look at Midtown and some of those instances where the the hospitals have taken certain base floors. It just hasn't arisen.
Right. I mean, if you take over there, at 1290 Avenue of the Americas, you have, Columbia Presbyterian has a couple of floors. If you go to Memorial Sloan has floors. So a lot of the hospital complexes have taken large medical space in certain parts. For example, Mount Sinai has about 150,000 square feet in Pierpont Place in downtown Brooklyn. So,
you would think
Michael,
that
there's a brokerage opportunity
Right,
for you. It's yours.
I was going to say, there's demand, right? I mean, with everything happening, you'd think that there's going to be demand, and when there's, the market's fairly efficient, so.
I think in many cases, the urgent care centers have been able to operate more efficiently than a lot of times a large hospital will.
Right.
And I think they can utilize smaller spaces. You can have more of them. You could have one every X number of blocks as opposed to a hospital.
But the McLeod deal also points to the diversification of the tenant base downtown.
Right.
You're looking at firms in healthcare, advertising, publishing, branding, filming, not just law firms, traditional financial service firms. Everyone's looking at downtown, no matter what business they're in.
As I was alluding earlier about the fact that the low-cost alternative, at one time, a lot of nonprofits were going downtown, and especially Silverstein's property.
120
you have
Wall.
120, is basically a nonprofit building with the occupancy tax. With that into consideration, what effect has the tax benefits which were once driving business downtown? Do you see the reenactment of the Lower Manhattan Development Corporation tax credits?
We're seeing still a lot of interest from nonprofits because there's a lot of space that fits their needs perfectly. Chances are they're not going to move into brand new Class A office space, but there's plenty of other buildings that are perfect for them. And very often these nonprofits want to be on or near Wall Street. They want to be near their major donors. And there's a lot of interest in downtown. And again, the people who work for nonprofits tend not to live in Connecticut or Westchester or Long Island. They live close to Lower Manhattan.
What about the cost? We were talking before that Winston said they acquired the property at 101 Murray for like $600 in FAR. If someone would have said to me 2 years ago that Lower Manhattan land was selling for $600 a foot, I would say, have you seen a doctor recently? There was something wrong. I mean, this proliferation of land prices, what's selling? I mean, in Tribeca, how much would land sell for if there was a site available?
I think it's it's always a tricky question with what is land worth. I mean, we've acquired sites slightly under $400 a foot up to $700 a foot in downtown Manhattan. It just depends. I think right now land is one of the more expensive components, if not the most expensive component of a project these days, is getting the right piece of land at the right price.
listen, there's a scarcity of land. I think that if our property was put back on the market, we would get a significantly higher price today. It's hard to get things done in the city. I mean, right? I mean, that's one of the opportunities if you have a piece of land. It's one of the challenges if you're trying to find one. There's not a lot of places to create scale anymore.
So here's a question. I'm a office tenant today. I'm in a building in Midtown. And they say to themselves, you know, I have Midtown South, which you can't move into because there's so limited space over there. I can go on Avenue of the Americas and save money. It's cheaper than most places because there's too much vacant space. I have the opportunities in the Hudson Yards with you people and related over there. Are all these big tenants looking for everything, or are they keeping their sites in different markets, or is this a certain type of tenancy looking to be in Lower Manhattan as opposed to being in Midtown or in the Hudson Yards?
So if you are a large tenant that has timing that's out 4, 5, 6 years, you're going to be looking at all the new, and you want to be in new construction, you'll be looking at downtown, you'll be looking at the trade center sites, you'll be considering our Manhattan West and.
So when is your Manhattan West opening?
There are different components.
I'm talking about the office component.
The office, what we've done is we are now 15 months into the construction of the deck, which will be completed at the end of the year. We'll be proceeding with the residential tower, and the office towers, we're looking for an anchor tenant to start one off.
The reality is there's a finite amount of new construction happening in New York City, and it's not enough to serve the companies that are looking for new space, which is why I believe all of these projects ultimately are going to be a success.
I mean, but that was something that many people were a little worried about, you know, that the trade center was coming on board at a certain time. Portions of Hudson Yards would be coming on, and it looks like it's being eaten up. It's being, all of it's being leased up.
It's a small amount of space. I mean, in the size of New York, it's, what are we talking, 25 million square feet or something, 30 million square feet, which I don't want to make light of that, but it's a big market.
And it's more or less staged too. Not all of it's coming.
Right. It's taken time. Some of it's already spoken for. I mean, it's not. You know, I mean, I think New York can easily absorb that, and it's helpful for New York, right? It's just getting better. I mean, New York is a great place to do business.
One of the things we haven't talked about is if you look at New York 5 years ago, the economy was very Wall Street focused. If you look at it today, if you look at the tech component, you look at the new education opportunities, you look at the entertainment, there's a lot more businesses who want to be in New York now than ever have historically been, and assuming that continues, for the next 5.
I mean, look, I believe Google's acquisition of 111 had a major effect on the market. Yeah. I think that's helped the situation over here. I think a lot of tech companies, WeWorks and everyone else, there are a variety of people who are going in there. And I think the change over here, downtown had a tech market in 2000, in 96 to 2000, then the world ended. But it's, coming back there. And I think, as they would say, the stars are aligned for a very positive year in general, and I think even a better year for Lower Manhattan. And we've seen it by the fourth quarter leasing. We've seen it by people buying apartments, renting apartments, and I think the development, and I'm pretty certain that everyone over here is going to have a very successful 2014 and hopefully for many years. And I'd like to thank Joe McMillan, Mitch Rudin, Dara McQuillan, and I think it's called Winston Fisher, last but definitely not least. See you next week.
Thank you.